love you, Linda. Love you.
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
And welcome to Justice Served TV. Michael Bryant here. Hey, Linda Kenny Bodden, how are you?
I feel so good having my cohort, my partner in crime back up, Michael Bryant.
So
it's
I
been
can.
a long day.
I'm sure it has, although shorter than some.
Right.
So I can officially now say, first of all, my goal for the next hour-ish is that none of the batteries and all of these appliances I have go dead. So fingers crossed. So now I can officially say I am in Praia da Luz, Portugal, because we did have a winner to our Where in the World is Justice competition. And it was Larry Lefty.
Leon lately.
That's it.
Leon
lately.
Mr.
So
Leon
Leon, whether you're getting in the chat, might be in the chat, could be in the chat. We need to get your contact info so we can send you a mug that only the person who identifies the Where in the World is Justice location has. And I have to rag on my partner here just a bit, because the original plan was to have 3 winners and just kind of string it along and not acknowledge the first until we had a couple others. But I heard you today. I heard you going on about, hey, I'm in Portugal and the Madeleine McCann case. And anyway, so that's the case. We do have some interesting updates in that case. It was almost 18 years ago to the day. It was this month in May, 18 years ago, when this little girl, just a couple of blocks up from where I am now, I'm on the waterfront. She was just a couple of blocks up, and she disappeared. She has never been found. There have been suspects. There have been parents accused of doing the crime themselves, maybe even trafficking their little girl, right?
Terrible police work. Terrible.
Yeah, brutal. And I've been in touch with the Portuguese police more than they'd like, and with Scotland Yard, because in England, they I think it was about 6 months ago, released another £192,000 to continue the investigation in this case. When I asked them, well, what are you spending that on? And where's that? It seems just kind of weird. And at almost 18 years at that time, what's going on? Where's this money going? Of course, they weren't exactly sharing, but they did suggest that they have 2 detectives on it full time and a staff person, and they're following leads, and they're running down the evidence, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll have more on that.
Do they want help from maybe the Norfolk County the gendarmes? Okay.
Yeah. Sure they do. So we're going to continue to follow up on that. I'll post some little reports from here and there and around the area to kind of give context to the story and bring you the updates that we've discovered in our investigation. So that's the reason for being here. That's the reason for the Where in the World is Justice mug awarding. And so it's good. Yeah, and it's a beautiful part of the world, with a tragic story to tell, unfortunately. And believe it or not, here we are 18 years later. This part of Portugal in and of itself, an amazingly safe place. And this area in particular, it's in the south, called the Algarve, Lagos, Lagos. It's pronounced Lagos, is a bigger town, kind of a very popular tourist area. It's barely 3 kilometers over the hill from Praia da Luz. And again, it's Luz, but pronounced Luz. It's just a beautiful part of the world and super safe, and some of the most amazing beaches ever. So I'll
look at it this way. When I said who won, I couldn't pronounce the name of the town, right? I got the country right. I couldn't pronounce the name of the town. So that was one.
How did that go? What did that sound like exactly?
Praia da Luz. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
I don't even
remember
remember rivers.
That would be normal.
And here's why I should have been entered in this contest because I thought you were going to 3 different places investigating 3 different crimes for us to serve TV. So I'm a little confused here.
That seems like a lot of work to me. Yeah, one country, one crime at a time. Thank you very much. So it's an amazing story. Unfortunately, it's still without an ending, really. So we will get into Madeleine McCann and that crazy story from this part of the world.
Yeah, so terrible story. By the way, they accuse those parents who'd been trying to have a child, and the police work with it just got off. It's just terrible. Yeah,
the Portuguese police have been slammed for their not unlike some of the cases we've been following domestically.
Yeah.
Just brutal. And they're very closed-mouthed about it now because they got nothing to be proud of. So anyway, speaking of nothing to be proud of, how was what's the latest in the Welcher files? I guess he didn't do any better today, but I think Alessi did.
Let me check my Apple
Yes.
Watch to see. You know how last night we said the judge should tell him not to check his Apple Watch because he was checking his Apple Watch the whole time.
Right.
And today, I don't know if Alessi watched TV or not. Alessi came in and said, please don't have him check his watch. And he actually said to the judge, but judge, I get my emails on my watch. He said that. Because you're not supposed to be looking at your emails and any contacts that you're getting while you're on the stand. I don't know. I can't wait to ask Stephen Plourd whether he's checking his Apple Watch every time he's testified. So, and he got thrown off his feet at that point. And of course, I didn't like something that he said yesterday, and there's no secret about it. When he talked about the female forensic pathologist who's board certified, who's worked very hard, and we had Dr. Priya Banerjee on the other day, and you all know about my husband, right? And he degraded the forensic pathologist. I don't talk to people like that. People like that. Okay, so when I somehow I missed it yesterday, but I saw it last night when I was going through things. So this morning, if you haven't seen the Linda rant about Welcher, and quite frankly, after that, he lost all my respect. I couldn't listen to him. And it goes to show you how one thing can turn a juror off. Well, that turned me off because I turned that into that was being sexist.
Well, whether this was caused by a car accident or not, did you consider that as the basis of your opinion?
No, I wouldn't take a person like that's opinion for that.
Did you ever have a conversation with Dr. Scortabello about her expertise limitations?
No, I would want a biomechanical analysis.
Was your
okay? Person like that was the actual word. And tomorrow I will be doing a rant about the Commonwealth, who wants to talk about her limitations. Now we seem to Starlink seems to may have been gone down because all of a sudden from Priya Deluge we have lost Michael O'Brien. Okay, so maybe I don't know. Maybe I turned him off with my rant. In the meantime, we do know that Donnie, not Wahlberg, thank you, Donnie, not Wahlberg, gifted One Justice Serve TV membership here. And Olivia, thank you for being in the chat. I've been following you. Thank you for that. And tomorrow we're going to talk about how the Commonwealth is also sexist and arrogant, because the question leading into that to him was the limitations about Dr. Scortabello. There were no limitations about Dr. Scortabello. What there was nastiness and downgrading and downplaying and attacking and limiting and degrading a female forensic pathologist who did her job and did it damn well fine. Because why? She stood up to the pressures of the state police and she kept her own opinion without influence. And we've heard from my own husband about that's what a medical examiner has to do. All right. So I took that not only as against all women, including women forensic pathologists, one of which we had on the show, and that was Priya Banerjee. And then I also took it personally because I know my husband could run circles around Judd Welcher if you want to talk about how injuries are caused and the cause of death. And I think it is totally inappropriate. So stay tuned for tomorrow for that rant. So Olivia, thank you for joining the chat and thank you for everything that you do. And I do hear that Michael Bryant may be back. He just wanted to get away from me when I was talking about the rant. I can tell that from Priya Deluge.
Like I said, I got a lot of things operating on battery power here, and sometimes they don't cooperate. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
Anyway,
so Niall was just in the chat, so she liked the rant, Michael. So that was
which was this? Which rant was that I missed?
The one you missed the one about the people, a person like that. I don't pay it.
Oh.
I don't go talk to a person like that.
A person like that.
Yes, right. Okay.
Typical man.
Yeah, that thing. Did
you
see that?
Yeah,
I saw typical man.
You go.
Yeah.
I understand. I understand your concern. And the guy, as I've said, he's so loosey-goosey on the stand. He just does weird things that are so unprofessional, and that's one of them. Showing an obvious bias. It's just he's a bizarre dude. I'll tell you that. These folks from Aperture. This trial may be the downfall of Aperture. From the folks we've seen between Burgess, one end Shannon, and now Welcher. I'm telling you, it makes It makes them look horrible. And we know their business model seems to be gathering people under an umbrella and then farming them out as experts. But, you know, when a couple of your alleged stars come off as they have in this trial, that is not good for business.
Yeah. Joey Kane gifted 5 Justice Served TV memberships.
Thank you,
Joey, as usual. I know you're probably gonna put my rant to something. I know that. I know you're gonna do that, Joey, because everyone's dying to see that. To Mr. Wiffleball and something like that. Olivia Nile, it's honestly disgusting. I'm glad you spoke up and said something for Dr. Irini Scordi-Bello. Has gotten so much unwarranted scrutiny in this case from members of the prosecution. And let me just say one other thing. And when we bring our guest on, he'll know this too. There's been cases where the police, when someone doesn't want to testify, they've gotten medical examiners fired, okay? They've gotten them fired. And they called her a whack job. And she's taking that pressure here, okay? Now, there's a difference between bringing somebody in and saying, I have a different opinion. I may have more experience in this area. I want to coordinate. She's got one opinion. I've got another opinion. But there's another way that you don't do it with Hank Brennan by saying, did you talk about her limitations and qualifications? Her limitations, right. Her limitations, Hank. Okay, yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. You who represented Whitey Bulger for 7-8 years.
Because she was too honest. That was the limitation, right? She was too honest about what she found and her opinion about the causes, undetermined. Remember, for those who don't remember, there was a pretrial motion in limine by Mr. Brennan to leave out the reference to an undetermined cause by this medical examiner. He wanted that left out.
Right.
So come on,
there's supplementary material left out. And so, so to rant tomorrow, we'll be talking about bringing in Dr. Wolf, the brain surgeon who's never known about a dead brain in his whole life, unless the person died under him. And I'm sure he never cut the brain out and held it in his hand, like medical examiners have to do when they're looking for causes of death, or forensic neuropathologists when they're sectioning the brain and looking. The hard job, the hard work, okay? The hard work that's there. I see you, Linda. How about a cheer for someone each week? Dr. Scordi-Bello could be the first honoree. Agree she stood up to the powers. Hey!
Sounds like a person of the week.
Person of the week.
Sounds
Thank
like
you. I see you. I see you too. Thank you very much. We really appreciate that a lot. Okay.
It's a good idea. Make a note of that. Make a note of that.
We should do that because we haven't done person of the week in a while. And she'd be the perfect one. So tomorrow we'll talk about the prosecution being sexist and arrogant on that way. But anyhow, I'm going to turn this over to you because we have a very important guest on. You know him well. He's been on. He's friends with Dr. Welcher. Don't. That's okay. It's all right. It's okay. Everybody. Don't go away. It's a professional friend, just like we have professional friends have different opinions. He's been on the same side with him. He's been on a different side with him. But his experience, my gosh, and what he told us about making sure the crime scene was good last week and how you had to do it. And this crime scene wasn't great. Was just what can I say? It's just wonderful. And he's a brother of a co-counsel of mine from the Phil Spector case. His brother Chris Plourd is now the senior judge, the top judge in Imperial County, San Diego, we are familiar with. Knows forensics inside out. The family is great. They're honest. They're honest as you could be. What can I say? Have morals, have ethics. Isn't that somebody that you want doing your forensics? Kyoko, thank you for that donation. I found you a bit ago.
Yes,
but a pleasure meeting you. Pleasure meeting you too. And please bring all your friends. And by the way, before we go to Stephen, hit like, share, and notify that we're on now. And again, thanks Olivia for coming in. If you don't follow her, you must follow her because she's great. She's amazing, just an amazing person. Okay.
I was going to bring Stephen on, but we're out of time. So
I'm sorry. I too much of a build up for Stephen.
Hey, Stephen.
That's a great build up. Thank you very much.
So welcome back. It just seems like days ago that we had you on. We had you on the eve of what we were anticipating from the the Aperture expert, Mr. Welcher. Now we've seen him. You've seen him. Give us your thoughts.
Well, he knows what he's doing, and he's good at what he's doing. He just didn't go far enough, in my opinion.
How so?
Well, he did this grease paint test for one, and he's looking at the evidence of the arm, the forearm, and where there's contact with the lens of the back tail light. And he had the vehicle back up at a certain speed. I think he said 2 miles an hour. And he held his arm in the exact right spot where, and this is all pre-done ahead of time. He knew where it was going to touch. So he wanted to make sure the contact and the scrape marks and the contact with the lens all match up. And that's something you would do, but he just didn't go far enough, because I don't think that just because it makes contact there, it is going to leave all kinds of evidence on his arm or the taillight itself, because the allegation is, or the evidence from the police showed, that upon contact with the taillight, it broke and it went on the ground at a certain spot. And nobody can identify that. And where it is on the ground, it would clearly, you saw how deep the scratches were, how deep the lacerations were on the arm. If that lens actually was unfractured and then fractured as a result of the impact, I would clearly see evidence of tissue and or blood, some DNA on the lens itself. And there'd be a lot of it because it broke in multiple different places. So when it did that, they said, I don't think there's any DNA on the lens that we know of. Is that correct?
There was some John O'Keefe on the exterior portion, certainly nothing on a broken part or the interior part of the lens.
Right.
And no flesh, no blood, no
tissue, no nothing.
You saw those are a lens that fractures and then it causes deep cuts and abrasions and lacerations such as that. You would expect to see, first of all, you'd expect to see flesh on it, because when a car gets hit or a person gets hit by a car, there's all kinds of tissue you find embedded in the windshield, the fracture of the windshield, or the lens, or the hood of the car. There's smears all over the car, and there's all kinds of DNA, and the physical evidence is there to show all that. And there isn't enough there. The other thing is, I don't think that the lens would fracture that fast, even at 20 to 24 miles per hour, to cause all the lacerations all the way across the arm and the forearm. The other thing I noticed, and he indicated the same thing as the ARCA experts did, as the arm is stuck out there, only 8 or 10% of the body weight is on the arm, or less than that. As the body spins away, now the body is rotating. His test where the head goes smacking to the ground, if he's anywhere near the street, it's going to fall into the snow, but it's spinning and rotating. The laceration in the back of the head appears to be a straight, blunt hit backwards, not a rotation, in this case, a counterclockwise rotation when it hits the ground. And it's going to have different characteristics. And even though I'm not a pathologist, you got to look at the pathologist reports. You got to look at that. You got to look at the autopsy report, autopsy photographs. You may say, I disagree with it for one reason or another, based upon my experience, this and that. But I looked at it. I looked at the report of Paul, Detective Paul, or Investigator Paul. You look at all that and you kind of figure out why they're different than me. Maybe they're inexperienced. Wilshire has good experiences, no doubt about it. I met him in the early 90s, mid 90s, and I'm not buddies with him, but we're on a first name basis. I can call him up on the phone, ask him a question. We'll talk to each other at conferences. We'll see each other on same side cases or on different side cases, and we'll agree or disagree. But he's in a different field. But the bottom line is, I don't think there's enough evidence to support that the impact took place at a certain spot. Wilshire did some things that he was talking about, how the car went forward 34 feet, then backwards 57 feet, total of 87 feet. The total distance up and down was 47 or 87. The thing is, it's doing 24 miles an hour at that point. At 24 miles an hour, it's going to continue backwards for another 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 feet. And there's a vehicle back there, depends on where it was, it's going to be hit, the Jeep or the Ford F-150. There's just too many unanswered questions. So he did a reasonable reconstruction, but he left out too many things. If you're going to buy a vehicle for $50 or $60 or $70,000, and some people have the ability to do that, you get a dummy arm that weighs, and you either slap it as hard as you can, or you hold it out and you hold out the dummy's arm and back it up at 24 miles an hour to show what type of damage it will do. Can you do it with 3 or 4 cars? Taillights, a couple $100, $400 or $500. Do it a couple times.
Yeah.
Don't have him do it. I wouldn't want him to do it himself, even though he was the same height and weight. He did a reasonable analysis, just didn't go far enough.
That was one of the things that jumped out at me as odd, amongst many oddities, is that, hey, let me just I'm going to be auditioning for the role of Officer John O'Keefe, and then I'm going to fill that role. It's just weird. If everything else were pristine, I would still question his objectivity when he is that big a part of the experiment, which Attorney Alessi focused on quite a bit, and that is, these were experiments. This is not sort of fact-based, reliable science. You're just goofing around here. You're experimenting to see what might happen.
Right. He's trying to recreate what he thinks happened, and is he working for the prosecution? Yeah. Is he being fair and objective? Probably not, because there's a lot of pressure on him and the state to convict Karen Reed. Because like I said before, I'm pro-cop. I don't want to see the cops put out evidence that looks characteristics such as this. It does look fraudulent. It absolutely, the way the investigation was held. But you got to look at it and be more objective, in my opinion. And I don't think he was as objective as he could have been. Is anything possible? Yeah. Is it reasonable in this case? Probably not. But there's just not enough testing that was done. And he, he knows what he's doing on the stand. I haven't seen him since he had his full beard. This is the new beard.
When we introduced him the other night, it was his Aperture, biopic, and it was clean shaven and actually a little heavier maybe than he was when he appeared on the stand.
Right.
I
saw him a year and a half ago at a conference, and he was clean shaven and a nice guy. He's always been a nice guy to me, but he looked like the beard makes it look more, I guess is the word, distinguished, more professorial. I know that's my theory. Yes. And that's why I color my hair white now. So I look. When I first started 35 years ago, they said you look really young for having all the experience, because my hair was brown. I was actually a little bit thinner. I just didn't look like I knew all that I knew. Now I got more experience. I got the gray hair. You put a different type of glasses on. No glasses, sunglasses. So you have to fit the part to let the jury make you more believable. And he wasn't looking at the jury as much as he should have, but he did okay for what he was supposed to do. But I just don't think he brought it home. I really don't think he brought it home.
Yeah, one of the questions I had, Stephen, is we're all looking at the broken taillight. So how much force do you have? Bring that car and show us how the taillight breaks. Back it into something. Back it into a crash dummy. I've seen these crash dummy tests. Why isn't that done? We bought our own taillight. You saw it I don't know if you saw it last week. We bought our own taillight for what $400, Michael?
Oh, shoot, no, I got it for less than 100. All disclosure here, the top corner of it had a piece that had been broken out. Didn't affect our experimentation, because we still took a hammer to it to get it to break into pieces.
That's a heck of a beating to get it.
Yes.
Break like that.
Yes.
And not just a small part of the taillight, didn't just crack it. It fractured it into now 46 different pieces.
Yes, as of today, 46.
Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said the first time, when the officer first showed up at the scene, who knew there was a dead or dying police officer, in another officer or detective's home in their yard, you shut down the whole scene. Whether the leaf blower works or let it melt and just let it dissipate a week later. Who cares? There's just too many unnecessary. And the other guy from Aperture, what was his name?
Shannon Burgess. Shannon with the one end, Burgess. Oh.
These guys, Welcher and Burgess, they just came up with a dynamic team that left no stone unturned and did a great job in cross-examination. And we'll see what happens to the jury. I think the defense has has a decent shot for, in my opinion, an acquittal. But you got to look at all the reasonable doubt. There's certainly a lot of reasonable doubt here. And I know if all the Aperture people, not Aperture, but the ARCA people, if they bring in Proctor and Paul and even Higgins, they're going to make things look like they're really trying to hide something. But I don't know where the defense is going. I know they're all on the list of the defense list, but you don't know who's coming up.
Yeah.
And starting with Mateus tomorrow, who is going to have qualifications in being a biomechanical engineer. So that's where they're starting. They're going right at what was left off today, going into the weekend.
So the ARCA guy that was
no, he's not. He's not ARCA. He did the downloading the data and all that type of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that are different on that. And as the vehicle backed up for 53 feet or so, 57 feet, and so it had to start at 0 and go back to 24. Where in that pattern, in that path, did the vehicle actually make contact with the victim? And nobody
did. If the vehicle did, if the car did.
Of course.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you make a good point. I mean, this is a magic Lexus that once it made contact, it immediately stopped. Or did it make contact? Let's assume it went from where John O'Keefe was standing forward 34 feet, back 53, because it was 87 total. That means 19 feet from where he was standing. So then did it hit him and then continue to travel for 19 feet?
It had to go backwards further because it's still going 24 backwards.
Yeah, even after the contact, right?
And the other thing is, what is he doing standing on the edge of the road? He sees the car go forward, then he sees it come backwards. In that 8 or 10 second timeline, why is he just standing right there? Is he just? There's too many things that we don't know. There's just so many things we don't know.
And that sounds like reasonable doubt to me.
To me, it's reasonable doubt. And I didn't mention this last time, but my dad was a very prominent criminal defense lawyer, and he followed in the footsteps. My brother Chris followed in his footsteps. I went to law school for a while. I've been around lawyers for a long time. When I was with the Highway Patrol, I testified. Now I do mostly criminal defense on my criminal cases, but like 90% is civil cases. But it's all the reconstruction is the same. But in this case, like we said before, you're trying to put Karen Reed away for the rest of her life. You have to leave no stone unturned. You have to have the most immaculate investigation. And in this case, to me, it's just not there. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. I don't think they're going to be able to do that. But just because she's there, he's dead, and we want somebody accountable, and nobody else is going to fess up to it, the jury may come back and find her guilty.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, but it could happen. I'm saying it could happen.
You never know what a jury's going to do, and that's the danger here, because we know all this stuff, but you never know what a jury's going to do. Just like me, I got turned off by Welch. Once he said that was it. I'm not taking anything he says, but didn't that look more like a reenactment for TV that was done, as opposed to an actual reconstruction that you can test, you can subject to peer review, you can repeat it. You know, the repetition, scientific repetition, as you know, is important. To me, that seemed more like a made for TV reenactment, as opposed to an actual.
And I think it was. You got a surrogate person. You got an exemplar vehicle. You know where the damage is on the arm, the injuries to the arm. You know where the damage on the taillight is, so you put blue paint on it, and then you back it up to match it just right, and then you got nothing else to follow. He said the taillight could break at 8 miles an hour. I seriously doubt that.
I do too. If that's true, show me. Show me that.
You can get a surrogate dummy that has the same 10 or 12 pounds and slap it as hard as you can into the taillight and see if you'll break it. And I don't think it will. I I really don't.
I don't think so either.
And quite frankly, we don't really know if that was done. I mean, one of the things that you don't get, and when you, as you know from your brother, you don't get the stuff that is bad for you when you do this. They only turn over what is good for you. Maybe not you, but we've been in cases where then you find out that, wait a second, they said the gun trigger pull was 8 pounds. or it was a hair trigger, 1 pound, but they did 500 tests and only one time did it go off. Every other time it was not. So
Sure.
and you find that out after years of litigation, after somebody's been convicted.
Sure,
So
sure.
that's what I worry about. Yeah, that's what I worry about. Anyhow, while we're watching this, we have some viewers. I gotta know. Watch All Daily. Thank you for covering everything. We appreciate you watching us. We try to bring you good guests. We try to bring you guests to know what they're talking about. That way you have a reason to come here. And Parametus chipping in towards Mike's Bean Burrito, because you're on the road. Everyone knows that you're going to go back down to, we're here, but next week you will go back to Dedham. And then Donnie Not Wahlberg is one of our big supporters. It's really disturbing that Proctor said he should have let me talk to her. That's talking about, we're going back to the, I've kind of lost the comment. It's really disturbing that Proctor said you should have let me talk to her. So did he think he would change her report? Has he done that before? And that's talking about Dr. Scorti-Bello, because he called her a whack job when she wouldn't say that this was a homicide. Okay. Oasis Cat has a question, Stephen. Have you ever gone out to buy the exact same clothes of the deceased and wore them in a demo?
I have. I bought similar clothes for visibility and conspicuity issues at night and so forth. What you can see and can't see, but I have done that. You try to do a surrogate and do a reenactment. You want to match up. Let's say you're in a car with that has a seatbelt or no seatbelt, and you want to show if the seatbelt is properly worn, not worn at all, where the body moves within the car. You get the right size person. You look at the clothing, because there's certain physical evidence on clothing, especially with the pedestrian impact. They're going to land on the ground in a certain way and get hit. But the answer is yes, I've done that. I haven't personally. I've only done it once personally, because I'm not the typical person that gets hit. You find the right size surrogate with the same weight, hair color, hat, shirt, pants, boots, and you do that type of reenactment.
For visibility, though, that's more for visibility, right?
More of a nighttime visibility and stuff like that. What you can and can't see at night. And we rent out cars that are just like the ones that we have the same year, make, and model. We just did one earlier this week, and you show what the lighting from the exact same set of headlights, where the driver was, how high the eyes are, what you can and can't see, to show or disprove certain aspects of the case. And we do that all the time.
Yeah. There was a point in Welcher's testimony where he's trying to explain the cut over the eye, and he's talking about it lining up with an airfoil, air dam spoiler that's really kind of at the top of the vehicle. But it seems to me that if all these other things took place, all these other contacts to the arm, that at that point his eyebrow level is going to be nowhere near the spoiler on the vehicle. It would be a bizarre scenario in which both of those things happened at the exact same time, don't you think?
I would think that, because the arm, the way he was situated in his body, his head is inset of the spoiler itself, and I wouldn't think it'd make a contact. But if you want to push yourself and try to line it up because of his height, where the laceration was in the top of his head to the spoiler, you can make anything work. And for demonstration purposes, he did what he needed to do. He says, yeah, everything seems to match up. So these things are all possibilities, but you have so many different probabilities, so many things. And as I said a few minutes ago, when the body gets hit and it starts to rotate, he's not falling back on the back of his head. He's spinning and rotating by the time he gets to the ground, and he's going to roll and he's going to spin a little bit. And to get a laceration in the back of the head that is demonstrated in the photographs just doesn't seem consistent with that. It would be nowhere near the curb. The fire hydrant is surely maybe in play, but there's nothing there. And nothing was documented at the scene. So there's just too many unanswered questions, in my opinion, to put it all together. And even Welcher said it. There's not enough evidence to show how he was moving prior to, but to line it up perfectly with the matching with the taillight, he did a decent job in that, but like I said, he just didn't go far enough. And there's too many unanswered questions. And the GPS data and the navigational system, the speed analysis. There's just too many things that just don't make sense.
I got a note that says no data on force to break the polycarbonate. That's exactly what we're talking about. Thank you. I got to know. We think they're absolutely right. And then Ryden Bowen wants to know, my favorite was when Welcher said it's possible for the Lexus to have flown out to space. Sorry. That was,
you know, I guess in theory.
He's being facetious, but it makes him sound like, well, whatever I'm saying also is just as facetious. You know, I don't know that it helps him. Hey, Linda, here I got an idea. I want to, I'm big on doing these experiments, so I'm going to back 8 miles an hour into a tree, and just see what happens. So I have a question for you. Can I borrow your car?
It's not the same kind.
That's okay. We're just testing the polycarbonate lens. Don't worry so much.
But maybe a different polycarbonate lens. Super generous. Okay. Right. Let me give you a couple comments here. So general lens. Thank you, Linda and Michael. The Sui's always very gracious to us. Pro Gamer, this is interesting. I hear Aperture stock has tanked. Are they a traded company? No, they're not. They had an IPO that they were going to do back in 2022. They pulled that IPO. So one of the things I had wanted to know, and I'm not going to ask Stephen this, is whether or not in the industry is there rumors about whether Aperture was going to do another IPO based on their, shall we say, their fame in the Karen Reed case, which hasn't worked out so well.
The timing on it's interesting. Before Stephen answers to the degree he can, that was at or about the time that they started gobbling up these smaller entities like
2022,
Welch,
right?
And like Burgess.
Right.
So that might have been all part of that mix. Whatever you know, Stephen, if you could share.
I don't know. I know I work with many Reconstructionists, and Judd Welcher, 4 or 5 other people, I won't mention their names, but I knew them all as their individual companies. And I worked with them and against them for many, many years, saw them at conferences for the last 20, 25, 30 years. Then all of a sudden, Aperture bought, right now, I know the 5 owners that were now purchased by Aperture. And I understand they got pretty good deals. And even Judd said, it was a good deal for me. So I went out and let Aperture buy me. And now they're all under one umbrella, and there's 15 companies in Texas and somebody in Boston. And I know people in Los Angeles, Orange County, Las Vegas, Texas now, and then Arizona. I know these guys personally, and they're all Aperture, and they all work on the same umbrella. And I wouldn't want them working on, well, if they want to buy me out, they can, but I don't have a big company that has 8 or 10 employees like most of these guys do.
Well, actually, what does Mr. Plourd think about the morality, from Kay Lala, Welcher's testifying the way he did and making definitive statements about a collision? Thoughts?
Well, I think that he has to say that because that's what he wanted. He doesn't want to say, I don't know what happened, but this is more likely than not. And based upon the testing, everything matches up. Well, the injuries match up with the taillight, but the rest of it doesn't match up.
And that's because they made him match. It was clearly made him match up.
If somebody's going to pay me $325,000 as a whole, and I buy a $60,000 vehicle, and I can do what I want, and travel back and forth across the country a couple times to do some experimenting and testing, there's some things I would have done a little differently. But he got involved in the case last September, I believe, so it's only been in about 9 months.
Yeah.
But he's trying to do what he has to do to show that they have a decent case. Does the evidence match up? Sure, it does. Sure, some parts of it does, but more of it doesn't match up.
Doesn't match up, and that's the problem. Let me go through some of the Amy's Positive Pathways member for 2 months. Can jeans really scuff the vehicle, Stephen?
The answer is yes. If it's going fast enough, it can. If it's wet or there's snow on it, it may not be able to stick to the surface. If it's a different color, you'll see some patterns of jean imprints on a vehicle if it's hit just right, if you're wearing jeans.
Yeah. And what would fast enough be?
You're probably 15, 20, 25 miles an hour.
All right.
But, if you have snow on it or it's wet because of the conditions, my thought is you probably won't get a transfer.
Interesting. That's really interesting. So you got a lot of questions here. K squared. I can't get it past. Well, I'm sorry. Race Rocco Franco. Do I have K or do I have Sui General? I have so many people. I have so many people here. So generous. Thank you, Sue. I want to thank you for all your donations and getting your questions answered by Stephen. My brother was tough man boxer for years. Fought Tommy Morrison for Rocky movie. Wow. I showed him JFK's face picture and asked him what happened. My brother said he was beaten to death. And he, do you, and this is maybe unfair because this is what I ragged him on today. Thank you, Sue, by the way. Is that, you have to collaborate, right, with the medical examiner if you're going to see that, I would imagine.
Sure. I mean, you don't have to, obviously he can't agree with the medical examiner and say, I don't know what the cause of the injury pattern was, because the pathologist, I don't know what the injury, cause of death is blunt force trauma, the laceration to the head. I mean, that's, to me, that's obvious. But what caused that, the causation of the injury, medical examiner says undetermined. And the judge said, well, no, I don't trust those guys or believe those guys, so I disregarded it. And I say, well, it's consistent with this type of impact.
Blessed in Texas, national portfolio of best-in-class forensic expert companies providing a full-service expert analysis. CAC Forensics Partnership, October 2022. I guess that's the company that was bought. His company that was bought was CAC. Do we know, Stephen?
No, Judd had his company was in Long Beach, and I can't remember what it was. It wasn't that. It wasn't CAC. But,
there's definitely a period that they were absorbing anybody they could, it seemed, right? And
then a couple other people are being bought out by other smaller companies or larger companies to make their own network of experts. They want to be a one-stop shop. You got an expert for this? Yeah, I got this.
Right.
You have an expert for that? Yeah, I got an expert for that. And they have all the same ideas, and here's our pattern, and these guys make a lot of money.
Well, we know that. We know that. We know Welcher's pushing $400,000 on this case. $400,000.
The thing is, there's 3 or 4 offices working it, but there's a lot of testing. There's a lot of work. I know how much money he makes per hour when he just does it per hour. When he's testifying, it's probably twice that, because it's more. Your testifying fee is like double your normal reconstruction rate. And he being out there last week, he flew out there, and he says, I was supposed to testify earlier in part of the week. Did he stay out there for the whole week, or did he fly back?
I don't think so. He said, I think he went back.
But I saw some pleadings in another case, totally unrelated, in which somebody was contesting the money that he was paid or billed because he had reviewed tons of medical records and things of that. And the court decided he didn't need to look at those medical records, and they basically whacked his bill. I think it was $16,000. And so, I'm not saying that overbilling is unique to Welcher or his company. If it did happen, the judge found that it did. But it does just make you wonder, amongst all the other issues with this guy, is he also padding?
Yeah, well, a lot of medical records will have little excerpts of certain things in them that may be pertinent to your investigation and your analysis. So you may have to review a lot of them, but you don't have to review them to the depth of, $50,000 or $60,000 or whatever it may be, or even, and like you said before, $16,000 on that bill. But I get a lot of material I have to review, and until I review it, I don't know what the answer is, and maybe it's good, maybe it's bad.
Right.
But not enough evidence in there. But it could be a point or another.
Rocco Fracca, I'm the only one who saw reflections of the sky and trees in the bumper on the Lexus when the lessee was comparing the 3D scans of the vehicles Photoshop. There was a question about whether there was a Photoshop or a 3D scan. How can you tell the difference?
It's hard to tell. You have to look at the photograph itself, and I have to look at it on a computer. And I can't say, scanning it, and you're going to leave, like he was talking about today. What is in the background?
Just local drunks.
That's in Portugal. And that was a sad case of that little girl.
It's horrible.
It's horrible. It's awful. I remember I followed it for a while.
Yeah, and it's still alive.
But the answer is, sometime when you scan it, certain parts of the car don't scan properly, like the chrome pieces, the black doesn't scan just perfectly. And if you look at the photograph and photogrammetry and put it all together, you can tell. But He's saying it's not, and I don't know if it was or not. I don't know.
Let me ask you this about the whole 3D scan thing, which is all very science fiction-y exciting. I get that, but it seems to me the key purpose for it is for measuring distances, to make sure you've got specifics on distances as it relates to that vehicle. And maybe I'm misunderstanding the purpose, but it didn't sound like he got much out of that, if that is the purpose.
Well, the reason he did it, from what I saw when he testified, I think yesterday, he recreated the backing of Karen's vehicle into O'Keefe's vehicle in the parking lot of the driveway to try to perfectly match up where the vehicle went after it got bumped. Was the bumper and certain parts of the car aligned? Did the bumper or did other parts of the car make the taillight crack? And I think that was the whole purpose of that, to see if the taillight broke in that backing up, or like somebody said, she said, I backed into John's car and I broke the taillight. How would she know that unless she went out there and looked at it? And
I think she did. I think that was the issue. She said I had,
at some point she did notice it. To me, it's a little unclear as to when she first noticed it, of course. But to me, in Welcher's testimony, he basically said she did not. We acknowledge there's contact, he says, because we see it in that video. But he says the taillight was not cracked, because their goal is it's all or nothing when it hit in their position, John O'Keefe. So they were, but I don't know if that helps them all that much or not, to be honest with you, because
what they do, they scan the scene of the driveway, they scan the Chevrolet Traverse, they scan the Lexus, and they're able to show it into 3D motions, and they put it into a program and back it up and match up the video, and as they came in contact with each other at this certain point, and they say when it hits, the bumpers are touching, but the taillight is nowhere near there. And I think that was the whole objective to that.
Fine. Yeah, it's an argument, but I just don't know if it gets them where they need to go. I just don't.
Yeah. Blessed in Texas apologizes. Sorry, Linda. CAC was Burgess in South Lake, Texas. Their website says Aperture is a partnership of companies, but they are an LLC. I don't understand that. Do you have any insight on that?
I do not. They were a separate company before Aperture bought them 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, whatever it is.
You'd have to see the documents between those companies and who's holding harmless the other for liabilities, as this pre-existing. So if you absorb Welcher, and 3 years ago he screws up on a case that leads to liability, this new company wants no part of that. So there's going to be some paperwork that cuts off their liability from pre-existing problems he may have caused. That'd be true with any business, not just him.
Yeah. K Squared has an interesting comment. I can't get past Karen having multiple drinks, slick service from weather in the dark, and backup all the way, and maintaining control of the car. I don't know. The whole thing is, you've ever tried to back up? I don't know. I can't back up 24. How many feet was it to back up the straight?
Well, it was 54 back.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's documented, but it's still going backwards at 24 miles an hour. So it has to continue until you put your foot on the brake. And my understanding is the foot's not on the brake at that point, so it's going to continue for another 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds. I mean, she could be down in the other part of Canton, but
she'd be to Crestview by then. Yeah,
that's to Crestview. Hear you, hear me. 400K for Aperture, a lot at minimum. 300K for Brennan, 700K extra money for other things. Won't use the resources. The Norfolk County DA won't use the resources they have already. Lived in Norfolk County 33 years. Vote Morrissey out. That's a political statement, and that's the feeling, Stephen, that the people there, we as we've gone into this case, they've had enough. They've had enough of all of this. They don't see competence, and Karen is this, to use a lack of a term, she's a vehicle for the fact that they feel that she's being railroaded. Because why wouldn't you just tell the truth? Why don't you bring everybody in and just tell the truth? That Paul had a different opinion, that this guy has a different opinion. The medical said, bring them all in. Let the jury find out what's going on.
I mean, he was on hand. Paul was there that day, and he came up with an analysis of what happened. Now there's more information, and Paul's information is not good enough, so they bring in Welcher, and they bring in Brenner, and now they come up with something here and there, and like I said, the DA's office, wants to convict Karen Reed.
Yeah.
And they don't care. Obviously, they don't care the cost. This is just one expert, one set of experts. Welch's office was contacted, and he contacted probably the guy in Texas that worked on the case, and their team went together and put all this and Eva's stuff together. But they're $300,000, $400,000 or more, because that's. I mean, it's a lot of money. There's dozens.
That's a lot of money, right?
There's a lot of money.
Before we let you go, 007 in Texas. Speaking about Texas, what are your thoughts on his attitude, Stephen? Because you're just wonderful. I mean,
well. Some of his testimony was straightforward, but he was somewhat condescending, and he's being a smart aleck a little bit, because he was nitpicking at some of the way he answered, like Lexus. He was talking about what was the word? Appendectomy or something. I can't remember what he was talking about, but he said something. It was Lexus, not appendix, or something to that effect. And everybody knows that he's talking about the Lexus and a car, not some type of anatomy or body part. But he is trying to be clever, and he's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. And just like I said, I think he probably turned off the jury at certain parts during the cross-examination.
I think there's no doubt about it. I mean, they don't like to hear a smart ass, and they don't like to hear a guy that won't admit when something may or may not have gone as he had hoped. And right. he just would never back down. He was always smarter than Alessi. So I think it comes off badly.
Well, I'm an engineer. The car could go to the moon. In reality, it could go to the moon, but to say stuff like that, it just doesn't sound right. And I don't know if he's going to watch this thing at some point in time. He can say, "Steve, what are you doing there talking about me like that?"
He should be lucky that I didn't cross-examine him. That's all I can say. Stephen, we're gonna let you go.
Okay.
We hope that you'll come back on. Obviously we have some of this stuff beginning, and the ARCA people probably.
Yeah, when the ARCA people come on, that would be
you'll
great.
Be on with us for say the whole hour. I know we try not to use your time as much as we can.
Whatever you want.
All right, don't say that, because we will abuse you. So don't say that. We will bring you on here.
Well, my brother Chris, he always says sometimes you just gotta do what's right, and even though you don't get paid, you do it right. In some cases with the Innocence Projects, I did work for no charge because it's just the right thing to do, or you don't charge as much because some of these criminal people just don't have the money, but they got to have the proper representation and the evidence to point out the exact things that you need to do.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen.
And getting experts like myself, I'm not as expensive as Welcher or the other guys, but I'm almost about half of what these guys are.
Thank Crash Lord Plourd. Okay, 007 says thank Crash Lord Plourd.
My experience, 3,000 times had an accident scene as a CHP officer, firsthand, seeing within minutes the evidence, then 6,000 plus times in private practice last 35 years. I think I know what I'm doing.
Sounds like
we
it.
We do too. Yep. That's how we have you on.
Yep, and we appreciate it, buddy. We will be in touch. We'll have you back on. Thanks again.
See you next week, we hope.
Good luck, and I'll be watching. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Stephen.
Okay, now I know you got to bug out.
Now I know, and you've got a bunch of questions here to answer.
I'll try and do that. I wanted to show just the latest, the order from the court regarding the buffer zone, and just dip into that for a minute. So I will do that before I sign off, but I know you got.
Well, wait a second. You got other guests. What are you talking about? You have other guests.
I have other guests? Oh, I didn't know that.
Two more guests. You have guests.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Jeez. Yeah.
I gotta go to the production meeting.
Here. You have Jason Grant here. They're waiting for you.
Oh my God. Okay, then I'm going to get them on.
The next 15 minutes.
Okay, you get out of here. I will get them on, and
but you
we'll
have
cross our
you
fingers.
have also another a bunch of questions to answer in the chat. Hopefully, you can answer with them. Meatball Morrissey, Sketty Stain, Blessed in Texas, Paula B, Pebbles. I know that Diz or Missy will put them up for you. I have to go, everybody. Great. I apologize. I have to meet with a client for a dinner meeting, and I apologize. I will see you tomorrow. Court starts at 9:30. I will be on at 9:20 streaming, and tomorrow night we'll also be doing this case at 6 p.m. along with the Diddy case, and we have Lauren Conlon on. I will see you tomorrow. Michael, thanks for keeping the show going.
Of course. See you, partner. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do, and I've got my fingers crossed because of the power here remotely. Everything's working okay, but that doesn't mean it will be in a couple of minutes. So let me bring on, before it gets too late here, Jason is back. Hey, Jason, how are you, man?
Good. How's it going?
Good, very
Nice to
well.
see you again.
Thank you very much. And also, I have a guy we know, Attorney John Mateus. How you doing, bud?
Hey, Mr. Bryant, how are you, sir?
Hey, John.
Good, Mr. Bryant. Wait, is my dad here? And he did not come with me. Yeah, I saw these guys at the hearing up in the First Circuit there. Barely a week ago? Seems like so long ago. A week
yep.
yesterday.
Yeah.
And we were talking last night about the fact there had not been a ruling yet, and then it was as if they were listening to us. It was probably an hour later that the judge issued this, pretty well reasoned 20-pager. Before I get into some of the details in the time that we have, both battery power and my stamina, I want to ask you first, John, what do you think about the ruling as a whole, and if there are any things that concern you about it?
Well, as a whole, it is a net positive. Obviously, almost 90% of what was the people accused of violating the buffer zone, the federal court has now ruled that they did not. That certainly also may help them in later cases if they civil suits, because now we have a civil court order on that. It didn't exonerate. Them completely, and it also on the disappointing factor, it kind of let the order in the state court off the hook and kind of put all the blame for this on the police officers and their enforcement strategy. And it didn't limit the order at all. It didn't demand clarification. It didn't clarify. It did give certain examples of things that are and are not allowed in the buffer zone, and I think that the police are going to be taking those to heart. Overall, it's not, we wanted him to, as amici, we wanted him to strike it down completely, and that was not done. But this was a win for the First Amendment, in our opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. So let's go to the named plaintiff. Forever this will be known as the Grant case. You realize that. So what do you think, sir? What do you think about this latest ruling?
Yeah, I think, like you said, John was saying, we got most of what we wanted, and I would have liked that we could have worn whatever we want down there, free Karen Reed stuff or whatever, and then if someone violated the law, then they could prosecute them on the laws in the books. But it is what it is, and at least they called out the state police and how they were just too harsh on their enforcement of everything. So now that they have to, before they can do something, they have to have someone could point out something that's illegal. It's illegal and a violation of the law, and they can't just be vague and tell us we can't come or threaten us with arrest or anything unless they have something positive that shows that we're breaking the law or violating the buffer zone.
Yeah, it definitely shifts the burden to them to be very upfront about what they think is being a violation of the buffer zone in whatever form it still exists. What I didn't like, and what I was surprised about, John, was that they essentially carved out this prohibited conduct that relates to free Karen Reed or any other very specific speech because it relates to the case underway. I don't know where that is supported. What do you think the Cox case supports that?
Well, Cox case is different because that was a statute. That was just a general statute. Here we have an order from the court in a specific case targeting demonstrators, supposedly target demonstrators only in that case. But as I've pointed out repeatedly, the language in the order, even as it's fixed up, actually applies to anyone demonstrating at the courthouse on any related case matter, which takes away the First Amendment rights for people protesting a case that has nothing to do with Karen Reed. But beyond that, I was surprised that the court just basically took judicial notice that the FKR could be is a violation of this buffer zone order. Free Karen Reed, I think it's pretty. I can see how the court would say that's an attempt to interfere and therefore a violation. But FKR, the court says, everyone knows that this means free Karen Reed. Well, quite frankly, if the jurors are being segregated from seeing all of the protests and stuff, as they have been, and is usually proper, then how are they going to know what FKR is?
Some people might think that it's like FUKR,
right. I'm sure there's some people who have been like, or fry Karen Reed if we had the death penalty in Massachusetts. I mean, or it just could be, like a label. So I don't agree. I don't think the court was correct on that. But certainly, we know now that wearing a shirt or anything that says "Criminals Control Norfolk County" is completely acceptable in the buffer zone. It's completely constitutional, and it is protected. So people can walk in there with that. Well, I don't know if they did it today, because today would have been the first day that it would have been in effect. I actually wasn't down there, so I don't know how the protests went today, or the demonstrations went today. And I don't know if people took advantage or if anyone else was arrested in that sense. But yeah, there were certain other language in that is now barred. For example, convict Karen Read, which I have not seen. Convict or face the consequences, threats to the jury. But there are also some other vagaries, like the court stated that a phrase like "the community is watching" is an implied threat. I'm not sure that my organization would agree that because I am representing 3 organizations very quickly: First Amendment Lawyers Association, Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, and the National Press Photographers Association. We're amici in this case. So I do not represent Mr. Grant, just for the audience's sake, or any of the plaintiffs. We are coming in from the side here. But our organizations would say that some of these phrases like "do the right thing," the federal court is saying that could be an implied threat. I don't think it is, and we don't think it is. And I think if the plaintiff, go ahead.
It really sounded like the judge was going a long ways to cram those, assumptions into facts. They're saying people see that, and here's what they think. People see that, it's going to affect the jury. I just think you went way too far. Jason, were you out there today?
No, I didn't go there today, but I'm going to take time from work tomorrow, and I'll be out there tomorrow in the morning and stuff, and see how it goes out there.
What are you going to be wearing tomorrow?
I'm not sure yet.
I'm doing a fashion show here. What are you wearing?
I don't know if I have time to make a sign or a shirt, but if I don't get one tomorrow, I'm going to make up a new sign, maybe some new shirts. My girlfriend Allison wanted to make up some shirts, so maybe we do it for next week and bring them down there.
So under this ruling, if Erica had worn a shirt that just said FKR, Free Karen Read, then her arrest would be lawful under this order. That's how I understand it.
Yes, and that is it would be constitutional. Whether it would be lawful under Massachusetts law, that's for later stuff. I'll be the lawyer on that one. But yeah, definitely FKR would, the judges stating openly, this would have violated the buffer zone order. And so, yeah, all Free Karen Read and FKR signatures as the moment still not allowed in that buffer zone. But the court did make a good point. It's supposed to be a buffer zone, not a people-free zone. I think that was a good quote. People are supposed to be allowed there. It's just they didn't want certain activities that might influence justice to come in. Again, but I think, not for or against the police here, but it puts the police in a very awkward situation, because now they're forced to articulate clear rationale to people about why they think something violates it. How that's supposed to go, it's not really explained in the order.
Nope.
Are they going to post signs? Are they going to have a lawyer with them who tells them, yes, that violates, go, and then go tell them? Are they going to give them a chance to, remove it or get out or something? It's almost confusing that the police could take the self-protective approach of, okay, anything that the judge said in this order violates the buffer zone, we'll arrest or throw people out for. But other than that, we're not going to touch anybody. They could take that route and just be hands off, because right now the court has basically said any violations of the police's fault here and no one else's.
Yeah, no, that's going to be the most interesting thing. And Jason, you'll be there to check it out tomorrow. I'll be there next week, because it still puts a lot of control in the hands of the cops. I don't know that they're sophisticated enough, to be honest with you, to say, oh, now it's on us to articulate the reason you're violating the order, instead of just saying you are violating the order. I just, in theory, sounds great. I don't know about in practice.
Yeah, and like John said earlier, like that the jury comes in from the back on a bus. They're segregated, so they don't hear or see nothing out front. So anything we wear or signs we're holding, they're not going to see it anyway. So I don't know. And then and earlier on, they had, you said like no people zone, but they had you couldn't walk out front and you couldn't take a picture. You got stopped after 4 times, and they says 4 times is enough for you to walk by. And but now we can sit there, congregate there. We can take videos from across the street now. And before they were pushing everyone along.
That'll be interesting. The way this is written, I can wear my anything but Free Karen Read, FKR, and be hanging out as long as I'm not, somehow disrupting, I guess, traffic. Because that's another nuance that we don't know. Because now, if people are allowed in the zone with their neutral or not Free Karen Read type paraphernalia on, how close are they going to be allowed to the stairs or the sidewalk, or all of those things are yet to be figured out.
Yeah, I was thinking too. Like they said, Michael Dodge sweatshirt, criminals control Norfolk County is legal now. I was wondering if I got a shirt like that, but then put a picture of Bev on there with her winning the award, Norfolk County President of the Year, and then having Norfolk County controlled by criminals under it. Would that be a violation because it's Bev?
Well, I'll say that is a vague area because it's not clarified in either the buffer zone order from Judge Canone or the preliminary injunction here. That is not so certainly some police could say, I think that's a violation because they're combining those two things. Others could say, no, it's not. And again, that's discretion to the police, the individual officer versus the individual person's judgment. The point of laws is to be clear enough so that the police can just go enforce them, not have to think about, does this break it? Is this loud enough? This is why we have objective standards in the law, like 0.08 for drunk driving, right? The police, they can measure you if you don't have to take a breathalyzer, by the way, but if you do choose to give a breathalyzer and you're above 0.08, okay, well, now I can charge them with this. It's supposed to be more mechanical. And now it's just like the police did not sign up to be, and or should not be trying to figure out political statements from threats from influence.
Course. I mean, to their benefit and then to their credit, they should not be put in that position. Hold on just a second, guys. My spidey sense is suggesting to me I'm going to have a glitch. So just don't go anywhere. Stay right there. Stay right there.
So Jason, you didn't go down there today?
No, I didn't make it down today, but I'll be down. I'm going to go down there tomorrow morning. I'll be down there. And then, especially with the defense starting, tomorrow's the first day of the defense's case. So I'm going to start spending a lot more time down there.
Did anyone who went down today talk to you or anything?
No, I haven't. Allison was going to go down this morning, but she didn't end up going down. She wasn't feeling good. So like I said, we're just going to try it out for the first time tomorrow and see how it is.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for posting my Twitter account. Sorry, I'm talking to Justice TV, but yeah.
And then we'll see. I'm hoping it goes quick. I'm sure the defense is not going to be as long as the prosecution, so maybe a couple more weeks, and we can be getting ready for deliberations. Hopefully, we can get this by us.
I mean, the long. They were still unsure in the zone, John. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I believe that. Look, I'm a trained lawyer. I've handled, studied First Amendment law. I'm handling a First Amendment amici. I couldn't tell you what might cross the line and what not. And number one, what a police officer might think, and number two, again, what a court might think crossed the line. Because, if the police officer arrests me for wearing a shirt, whatever it says, but then the judge says, no, that's not a violation. Okay, they lost Starlink. I don't. Yeah, so I don't know.
But yeah, like you said, they said half, like the state police is split 50-50 if they think Karen is guilty and some don't. So it depends. If you got to come up between a state trooper who thinks Karen's not guilty, he'll be more lenient, and if you want a trooper that thinks Karen's guilty, he'll be more strict. There's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah. I missed some of that, but I want to repeat a question I saw here, and that was that somebody said under these new guidelines for law enforcement, will the individual troopers be responsible if they, somehow are determined they violated what they are supposed to do under the new order?
It appears so, and I know that there's several people who have been affected by this. I believe that this is going to make it a lot easier to civilly sue some of these police officers who may or may not have done this, because basically the court says you're the ones violating law, not the judge. So therefore, if you do it, you'll be personally liable. So yes, that does appear to be what the ruling states. And if I had I do not have any clients in a civil suit in this matter. Like I said, I'm just the amici, but I would be, it certainly makes a civil suit that much easier. I'll put it that way.
It's the legal term I use. It's a mess. And it's it's getting refined each time, and maybe by the time the trial is over, they'll have it figured out. But I can't wait to see what happens. John, I appreciate your input on this, and Jason, you're the guy out there. You are the guy. It is the Grant case forevermore, and I hope that it is successful this time. I'm not trying to cause more problems with the troopers. I do think they're being put in a horrible position, and they're not equipped to handle it. So let's see what happens. Guys, I know you're going to be watching it, so I appreciate your time and apologize for some tech difficulties. I'm glad you guys were having a little conversation with yourselves as I was off trying to, I had to, jumpstart the battery here. But thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.
Mike, when are you coming back next?
I'm going to be back Wednesday, Thursday of next week. Wednesday, Thursday of next week.
All right, I'll see you down there then.
Okay, man. Take care.
All right. Good night, guys. Thank you. See you later.
Okay, so we're going to wrap things up here. I was going to get into some of the documentation, but it was much better to talk to those guys who are either directly impacted by it or, pursuing it on behalf of some of the groups that John Mateus is pursuing. I did have one beef with the order. This was really, really bothered me. Maybe I can risk throwing this. I can throw this out there. I'm risking who knows what kind of mess here, but I'm going to try it anyway. So the order, and I did do some highlighting on it, but I'm going to skip that because going to the important part, the part where they mention me. That's of course the most important part. And I see where. Let me see if I can find it here for you, folks. Whoops, I almost had it. Where did it go? I almost had it. Where are you? Where are you, you little sucker? Isn't that it? Are you got it? Is it up there now? I don't see it. There it is. Thank you. I think Diz or Missy helped me out there. So on this document, it's 20 pages long, and they go into the background of the case, blah, blah, blah. Then they go into, the individuals involved. There's the supplemental order that was all screwed up. So we see right there, Michael Bryant, the judge has put the A back in my name. And I've never been so honored in my life to have my name misspelled. So anyway, part of the order goes into the background of my situation, Grant's situation, Tom's situation, Erica's situation. So it was very thorough. If you get a chance, take a look at it. I don't agree with it entirely, that's for sure, because I think to carve out that acceptance that they can enforce free speech just because it reflects Karen Reed's case is ridiculous. To suggest that because they might be holding signs that somehow the spirit of which will waft its way into the courtroom and somehow influence the jury is also ridiculous. And the court went far enough that it said actions against Judge Canone, like things that suggest she's corrupt or biased or inappropriate in this case, she should be protected as well as the process should be. If those other things might affect jurors, it's just as important that we protect the judge from things that might somehow affect her in her role. I think that's just wrong, but that is the nature of the case, and that's where we are right now. So anyway, enough of that. I'm going to get out of here. Have a great evening. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Linda, Kenny Bodden on at 9:20. They're starting at 9:30 tomorrow. It's Friday. Who knows when Judge C will just, call it for the weekend. We don't know, but we will be back tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. And I wish I'd been to the production meeting. I'd remember what we're doing tomorrow night, but I can't remember. I'm sure it'll be interesting. I know it will be. And I'll be still here in Praia de Luz, where I'll be dropping some tidbits of this story through the course of the day. And just kind of giving you where we are in having followed this case now. I've been following it for a couple of years because they thought they had a suspect in prison in Berlin that not so long ago has been ruled out as a suspect in this case. So I've been talking to authorities, give you an update on some of the things I've learned and where they are in the investigation, which is still technically ongoing. So good to have you along. Appreciate it. I apologize not getting to the questions as well as Linda does, because I'm kind of out here. It's very difficult to kind of manipulate all these things while I'm in the middle of nowhere. It's a beautiful middle of nowhere, don't get me wrong. But we will catch up. I know she'll do a good job of catching up with some of those that I did not get to, which is most of them, when she gets back with you tomorrow morning. In the meantime, I'm Michael Bryant. We'll see you next time right here on Justice Served TV. Try to do the right thing.
Riding flames, they charge with mine.